Oh, hello, Pleb. How are you doing? I'm kind of messing with some things here around here. I'm trying to stream on X now as well. Get all the platforms. I think it's actually working this time, so that's fantastic. I do not think, therefore, I do not am. Brain is empty. Technically, would my brain be empty? I am a skeleton after all. Oh, yeah, of course. I'd love to read more of your thing. Alrighty. Well, your head would be empty. You can't have brain empty without brain. Yep, fair enough. Fair enough. I don't remember. I'd have to go to Google Drive. I don't remember if it's saved to my drive or not. Hmm. Oh, you can send a link? Fantastic. Thank you. Alrighty, here we go. I got it. Also, feel free. This is new for this stream, but I got some emotes. So you're free to try them out. It should be a exclamation point emotes. Haha, there we go. Alrighty. Let's see, where were we? I know we were just past the beginning of chapter 2. And, um, this sounds familiar. I think we did read that. Chapter 2, yeah, we just started, so. I think we were here. Alright. Hello there, my fine friends. I can tell by your faces something's amiss. Mind telling me what the trouble is? Richard inquired. Friendly enough, but clearly it was just a reluctant formality. The problem is, whatever's going on over here. What's all that noise and dust from? I told you that you weren't allowed to make any changes to the mine, Caitlin said, forcing down a snarl from entering her tone. See, that's just the thing, Miss Bandersnatch. I'm not altering the main mine at all. Richard put his fingers to his lips and whistled. All at once, the robots stopped. The steam puffing from pipes slowed to a halt. As the cloud of dust and steam cleared, it was visible where a large drill machine was creating a tunnel. So I happened to learn of the official mine borders from a friend of mine, of course. And would you look at that? You only own the main shaft, Richard said arrogantly, a smirk on his face. That offshoot that Jack acquired, that, that offshoot that Jack discovered, technically unclaimed territory. If you look up there, I have some clear markers of my land, so you'll be sure to mind them if you please. So, so you're out here mining a new entryway into Jack's tunnel system? Tulsa said, voice filled with sarcasm. Yes, that's exactly right. Though I didn't appreciate the tone. Well, don't matter much. You can't do anything much to stop me. The rich man whistled again, and the excavation continued, dust clouds once again filling the air. Caitlin opened her mouth to speak, and stopped as Richard walked away. Tulsa, find out who Richard's friend is, and dig into whatever you can find on him. The closer we can see to getting him out, the better, she finally continued. Tulsa nodded as they made their way into the wagon to return home. It was late that night when Richard made his way back to town and was meandering around. His bear wasn't with him at the moment, but he was confident nobody here could take him down. Making his way down the streets, he noticed a particularly large building, a church of sorts. Richard had never been a very religious person. Morals get in the way of business was one of the earliest lessons he learned in life. However, he was curious to learn more information about Aram Gulch, just so he could exploit it a little more. Making his way inside, Richard beheld the large room. Pews in rows along the sides, and intricate windows lining the walls. Top of the morning to ya. Why, I suppose night by now, came a voice from the front stand, chuckling at its own joke. It came from Henry O'Shaughnessy, who stood at the front. Haven't seen you around here before. Can I ask you a name there, bud? The rabbit asked. Richard was nearly taken aback, the rabbit's Irish accent being so different from everyone else's southern drawl, as well as the fact it was a demi-human, the only thing in the world that could truly make Richard feel unsettled. Quickly steeling himself back, Richard responded, So, I imagine you would be the pastor of this place. What exactly religion is worshipped here, he asked, that same deep and velvety smooth tone, keeping the danger out of it this time. Well, we're our own denomination. Our church practices mostly revolve around community building, in one way or another. And I would introduce you to our head of organization, Norman, but he's already gone to bed. Richard nodded as he listened, picking out what was important in his head. Pulling out a cigar, he lit it off one of the church's torches. Bringing it to his lips, he blew into the air, the ash scattering. Henry grimaced at this, composing himself. However, his tone was much more stern now. Speaking of, I was about to lock myself in. Speaking of, I was about to lock up myself if it isn't too much trouble. I can show you a place to stay if you need one, Henry offered politely, though he made no effort to hide his disdain. I'll be fine, thank you. Richard flashed his set of golden teeth before leisurely striding out of the church, back into the town. I'm telling you, boss, this place got the best stuff. Them little breakfast sandwiches they sell are better than any gourmet cattywampus, Jack proclaimed proudly. Jackie, you are away I've had good gourmet, right? My machines are trained to that level. I have 5 Michelin star quality food every day, Richard chuckled, amused defied Jack's confidence in his phrasings. Jack looked puzzled for a moment, eventually speaking back up. Misha Lane, what? Nothing. Don't overwork yourself on it. Though I am curious. I've never been to a general store that sells breakfast of any kind. Perhaps the ingredients for it, but no more, Richard inquired curiously. Yep, the old man who runs this place is real nice. He and his daughters will make it right there. And then you got yourself a good and nice start to your day, Jack once again boasted, clearly very impressed with the establishment. Richard smirked, but said nothing. Coming up to the store, they entered. A bell at the door announcing their entrance. An old man with gray hair was asleep in a chair by the register, a sheet draped over him. Behind the counter stood a demi-human teenager with a bright smile on his face, his hair just above shoulder length, made of brown and red feathers rather than hair. They were reading over a magazine idly, his name tag reading Rhoda Swift. Richard's jaw clenched behind his lips, though he visually remained unchanged. Oh, hey there. Welcome to General Store's General Store. What you looking for? Rhoda asked charismatically. Jack began putting in their order. Richard giving Jack the all good to order what he thinks is right. Rhoda nodded and put on a pair of gloves, reaching for the ingredients. Richard stopped it. I would prefer if you were not the one to make my sandwich, Richard said, a voice filled with threateningly practiced calm. Rhoda looked at Richard for a moment before responding. Can assure you, sir, I won't mess up your... That's not what I'm concerned by. I'd rather the man next to you prepare it. But the customer is always right, Richard's tone left less than no room for argument. Patience clearly little in this instance. Rhoda's feathers stood on end a bit. He nodded, moving to General Store, shaking them lightly. Gramps, wake up. The customer says they want you to make the sandwich. The old man's eyes came open, half lidded with sleepiness. I told you earlier that's not my job. I know, but they won't let me make it. They wanted you to, Rhoda said, rubbing the back of his head with his hand awkwardly. With a loud groan, hands pushing on his thighs, Stower stood. His eyes glared at Richard, virtually assessing why he wouldn't let Rhoda make the sandwich. The general couldn't quite understand, so he asked. May I ask, Stower asked, as he prepared the rich man's breakfast, why you see my employee unfit for making your morning chow? Richard kept a smile, but couldn't stop a frown forming behind his teeth. I like that. That's a good analogy. Couldn't stop the frown forming behind his teeth. I like that. Well, I wouldn't want to get a feather in my sandwich. That'd be quite a rude surprise, don't you think, my good sir? Richard said, standing at his full height of 6 feet, 2.5. Suppose it would. The general scoffed. He could tell what kind of man Richard was. A man who despised demi-humans, just for their mere existence. Yeah, you're welcome, pleb. Always fun to find good analogies for things. Not sure what else to call it besides an analogy, although I'm not sure that's the proper term for that. Maybe a descriptor. Anyway, a tense moment passed. Oh, why thank you. I may, if I ever find the right opportunity. A tense moment passed, and Rhoda had reached out and begun asking Richard for the cash. Suddenly the harpy found his hand stinging on the top. It had been slapped away by Richard. "Do not touch me, you vile feathered waste of life," Richard said, raising his voice. "I will pay when my food is finished." "No, you won't be paying at all," the gray-haired general said. "You'll be leaving now." Richard looked at General Storer. Head reared back to the pushback from the old man. In less than a moment's glance, he had returned to his usual pragmatic state. "All right, then. I see I ain't wanted. I bid you adieu, you son of a bitch," Richard said in a suave tone before walking out the door confidently. The moon shone over the desert, Aram Gulch illuminated against the sands by dim lantern light. In a large room near the top of the inn, a light shone out from the window. "Sorry about earlier today, boss. Didn't know you hated those demi-humans so much. Wouldn't have taken you otherwise." "You're quite fine, Jack. Come, sit, drink," Richard replied, 2 bottles of wine deep already. As Jack sat taking a shot of whiskey, Richard spoke once more. "We've been affiliates for a while now, Jackie. I think it's time you knew why I do what I do, feel what I feel." Richard slurred slightly. Jack nodded, listening. "When I was a young lad, I worked at a coal mine. Cheap and disposable. I worked out to a bar job, and when I had raised the money, I bought a gun and killed the mine owner." Richard made a shooting hand motion drunkenly. "My little hometown was 10 demi-humans to 1 real one. They owned the coal mine. Demi-humans owned the coal mine. Not a single one of those other half-animal freaks felt sympathy for us." Richard slurred drunkenly. Jack awkwardly wrapped his fingers against his glass, not sure how to respond to the story. Luckily, Richard spoke in his stead. "And then I grew. Casinos, brothels, contracting. I own Hitman and my very own sludge corp. And you know, it's great and all, but I can't quite rest till those abominations, Fey and demi-human, are seen erased from reality itself." Finally, the drunken man quieted down, swigging once more from an aged wine flask. "Well, I can see where you're coming from, boss, but there was something I wanted to address," Jack murmured, loud enough to be heard, but not too much. Richard vaguely gestured for Jack to go ahead, mumbling something incoherent as he did. "Well, you see, I did some calculations, and I done paid my debt. But I'd like to work for you still. Maybe I could be your money man. You know, handle finances and such." "What's 800 divided by 32? With the remainder, please." "How much you want it to be?" "You're hired," Richard smirked, taking one last sip of his wine. "Well, that's the first 4 chapters of your story, pleb. Quite enjoyed it. Welcome in, Dark Senate. Do you play D&D? I do not. I did a little bit, a couple times, but it was nothing more than like a one-shot. Are you a West Coast? Oh, well, thanks for the follow, too. Yeah, well, not West Coast, but somewhere in the middle, western side. What do you think? Well, this story, very interesting. I quite like it. Now, I do remember you saying that this was like no editing done, and that's perfectly fine. But if you did want to continue from here, then yeah, editing a little bit, but without taking editing into account, I quite like it. It establishes some characters. You get the vibe for how the character's supposed to feel, which is good. And it's setting up for conflict in the future, which is how stories progress. So, all in all, I think it's pretty good. Pretty good start. My only complaints are the editing that would have to be done. It's like a out of 10 rating. Ooh, well, I, I'm putting Brandon Sanderson at a 10 out of 10. So for you, I'd probably put at a solid 7. But that is with Brandon at a 10. And I'm not quite sure what I'd consider a 0 out of 10 in terms of bad writing. I haven't I haven't quite seen that bad that I can remember anyway. Although I've heard there's been some poor things published. Good enough. Well, this was great. Thanks. Gotta go. Gotta. All right. Well, have a good night, pleb. Let's switch scenes here. Alrighty. I did have something else planned for tonight. It was going to be a character backstory sort of creation thing. I found a character online that didn't have any previous backstory. And I decided tonight I would write a backstory for it. For her, I should say. Gotta pull up Microsoft Word. But yeah, thanks for coming in, Dark Senate. This is first time streaming with some new emotes I got. So commands are working by the looks of it. Well, I can see them. But let's try it again. Oh, that showed up in my Twitch chat, but not on OBS. How interesting. How very interesting. I wonder why that is. I'll have to figure that out. Anyway, it is character creation time. Maybe I should switch these. I'm wondering where I should go from here. This is more of a character exploration. It's not supposed to be long. And truth be told, I don't know what else to add. You know what? Why not? Why don't I keep continuing? Oh, writer's block, writer's block. You have the cool character, but then nowhere to go. Well, I think I might just quit while I'm ahead. Switch to something else, maybe a little bit more entertaining. Alrighty. Question is what? I think we can simplify that though. Can always work on the daily redactyl. And we're back. This one has got 6 letters in the name. So, let's start with some filter words. His and her are not very prevalent. It's probably not a person. Otherwise, there'd be like hundreds of references. Maybe location. No. One mention of science. Hmm. What are the categories again? Oh, thanks for the raid. Erotixication. Welcome in. We're doing a redactyl right now. So, trying to guess words to figure out what this Wikipedia article is all about. What's good? Oh, I'm doing good. I'm doing good, yeah. So far, don't think it's a person because we tried his and her, and there's very few, only about 5 and 16 respectively. And the last time I did this with a person, there was quite a bit more of the his or her references. It was Stephen Hawking yesterday, and there was like 500 his in there. So it's probably not a person. However, I'm not quite sure what else it might be. I tried location, that didn't turn up anything. Alright. Let's try government. Maybe nothing. So maybe not a government position or department. Maybe not something geographically. Wasn't there... I know there was a... Here. I am so stumped. One mention of red. Okay. Business. 0 mentions of business. What on earth is this? Not a person, not a business. Outrageous. Let's try war. Nothing for war? I'm striking out so hard. One mention of river. Mythology. Oh boy. I'm just not on the right track to anything. Zero for computer as well? Man. What on earth is this? 6 letters. Oh wow, computer was way down there. Let's try game. Nothing for game? Letter. There's literally not a freaking thing that's in this article, apparently. Where was the categories? I want to look at what the categories were. Fields. Oh, shoot. Hopefully that didn't erase everything. Oh, no, we're all good. Ah. How was your stream, Iotic? Is that how you say your name? Itok? Wait a minute. Is it like intoxication, but Like if you drink too much, you can call Miss Scotty. All right, Scotty. Can't I can't believe it took me a while to see that intoxication. That's actually pretty clever. It's when you talk too much. I get it. That makes sense. Yeah. Hmm. Well, as I'm a little stumped, maybe you guys can try the emotes. They're brand new for this stream, and I'm trying to figure out how to get them to work. I do that, and they pop up on stream elements for me. Don't know if they do that for everyone else. Also clever, it smiles over people's heads, but it makes it great when people get it, because you're like really paying attention to me. Well, I'm glad you feel my attention. You have it here while I am here. That's kind of the benefit of small streamers. They can give you that attention. Attention seekers go on Twitch, find small streamers. Both benefit them and get the attention you so desire. Attention, that's a good idea. 0 mentions of attention to. Point out the doll where his attention touched you. Touched me right in my bony head. Ah, yes, this one. Maybe I should get a pose where I'm rubbing my head. That'd be a good one. I don't have one of those yet. Doll, let's try that. Oh. Literally my last like 6 guesses have all been 0 mentions. What on earth is going on? Head, 0 mentions. Mile, 0 mentions. Talk, silk. I tried science already. I tried business. I tried government. Probably not a person. Should try time as a concept. Year, time. Oh, there's some. Minute, 0 mentions. Probably not too significant then. Where were these? Oh, 2 single characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7. Right, 9. And now fix my model. All right. 2 to 3 years. Number 1, number 2. Oh my goodness. The blank are 2. 2 something. Inanimate object, what would be 2? Now I have this whole scenario in my head, like, points to heart, but it's like an isekai, and it's aliens, and their chest is their genitals or something. So you know, it like touched me emotionally, but it gets out of its hand, the whole plot around it, but it gets way out of hand. That's, huh. That's definitely a bit odd. Definitely a bit out of hand. One mention of building. Oh, let's try alien. 0 mentions of alien. Okay. Emotion. 0 mentions of emotion. Man, this is gonna be like something super simple, isn't it? And then once we find out what it is, it's gonna be like slam your fist on the desk. How was it that simple and I didn't get it? Event. No? Zero mention of accident. Travel. Four mentions of travel. One mention of London. Alright, let's try. It's at the very, very bottom. Europe. Two mentions. United States is here. That's also towards the bottom. Early. Oh. What if it's a law? There's two mentions of law. Oh boy. I'm not quite sure what to think about this. Jurisdiction. Zero mentions of that. Okay. Not very helpful. Zero mentions of car. Maybe it's a food item or a drink item. There's one mention of food. Age. Least. Most. I think this is the best we've gotten so far is most. We're foods until at least 1 or 2 years of age. So something applying to toddlers? Five mentions of people. Zero mentions of toddler. We also have up and down by 4 centimeters. 10, 11, 12. $20. 4 to 18 centimeters. Maybe it's a medicine of something. Zero mentions of medicine. Three mentions of space. Zero for inspection. Mention of period. So like period of time? during the period. Huh. One mention of religion. Some religions. Blank A. Zero mentions of tribute. This is getting tough. There's like nothing to go. Only most. There's round. How's round? Oh, I meant to type in shape. Sean. In a mystery story, I want to see this scene. A gentleman enters a boy's dorm room. 3 boys turn, and one says, "Sir," as they were confused at his arrival. He responds with, "Arthur Conan Doyle, it's good to see you well," then goes on to say whatever he had to say. Be just a tidbit of humor that wouldn't be noticed by the characters, only the readers. I do like that. That's actually fantastic. Arthur Conan Doyle. What other tidbits could you slip in that are like Arthur Conan Doyle? I don't know George R.R. Martin's. Don't know what the 2 initials for that are. Could be George something Martin, and that would work. Though I don't know what the RR stands for, so. Nancy, Drew, what are you doing here? Ah, yes, that works too. Could also do something like, "You guys are some Hardy Boys." And that would work as a reference to the Hardy Boys mystery series. Very similar to Nancy Drew. Don't know if any of you guys have heard that. When I was younger, I read all of those original books. I have the entire collection back home. And the Boxcar Children. Yes, I remember those too. Those just came back to mind. I forgot about those. I don't think I read all the Boxcar Children though. But I do remember those. Ooh, I just got a fantastic idea for a future stream. I'm going to have to write that down. A tier list for old, underappreciated stories. Could put the Boxcar Children on there, the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew. How about this? Stephen, King Under Control. Ah, yeah, that'd work. That'd work quite well. You could also do like, "Stephen, you're the king of something. You're the king of Burger King or something." As a matter of fact, I'm going to write that down. Tier list for stories / series as a stream project. Then you can have a bunch of suggestions. I'd have to prepare a bunch, but yeah, that'd be a fun project. You also have the best Amazon Prime commercial that will never exist. Well, please share. That sounds quite interesting. I am not having any luck. I think I'm gonna use a hint. I'm at 84 guesses. Hint, this structure is vital for mammalian nurturing. Oh my goodness. This is something super scientific, isn't it? It'll, it might be a chemical molecule. Oi. Milk. Mammal. Oh, Optimus Prime is getting his backside handed to him by Decepticon when an Amazon Prime delivery truck shows up, transforms, and tears the con apart. I thought I was the only Prime, she responds in Wanda Sky's voice. Well, honey, I thought I was, and so far I ain't seen nothing to say different. Now, if you excuse me, I've got deliveries to make. Transforms and heads out. Amazon Prime, even the cons won't stop us. That's actually very clever. Very clever. I would pitch that to Amazon, but if another Transformers movie came out, I don't know. I thought they were decent, the Transformers movies, but I have no idea if they have any plans on making another one. But if they did, that would be like a perfect commercial to go and market both the movie and Amazon Prime. And I'm sure if you pitched it to them, if that movie came out, it would be like 100% that's what we're doing. Why Wanda Sykes, out of curiosity? Is it just the voice? Because you could have like a bunch of different things. Is there anything specific about why Wanda Sykes? Also, new Transformers movie is in development, apparently. Michael Bay, of course, though no official release date has been announced. Part of a new trilogy following Transformers Rise of the Beasts in 2023. Did I see that one? I didn't know there was one that came out. Huh. Anyway, her voice and attitude is just perfect for the level of snark in her dismissive retort. Maybe there's other voices that would work, but she's the one that came to mind. That makes sense. I can definitely imagine that. Zero mentions of glucose. Mammal. Mammary gland. Okay. Produces. Every driver I've told that to has loved it. I mean, if I was an Amazon driver, I'd love it too. Kind of cool if you get to imagine your vehicle as an Autobot. FedEx drivers and UPS drivers missing out. Oh, and don't forget the postal workers. Ha ha. Secretes. In blank, a blank blank, as the mammary gland, which produces and secretes milk to form. Okay. Um, Functions. Vital. Seriously? No vital? Blood. One mention of blood. 0 mentions of molecule. Protein. No. How is there no protein? The hint is this structure is vital for mammalian nurturing. Wait. I just had an idea. Okay. So nipple is in there 27 times. Hmm. Oh my gosh. That had to be the word? Oh. Oh my goodness. I can't. Of all the words it could have given me, and it was this. Well, at least I'm not as dirty-minded as I thought. Maybe that's for something. I got it in less than 100 guesses. Came up with a cheat ability for an isekai story. It seems lame, but it's actually decent with the correct mindset. Magic recycle bin. Put junk materials of the same type into it and get raw premium materials out of it. Ready for sale to crafters. You don't just mix metal types or wood, leather types, or you'll get suboptimal results like poor metal alloys or fertilizer instead of good steel, wood pieces, or leather. Hmm, interesting. I do like that. I think there's and I can't remember, but I do believe there's an anime out there that has something to do with uh, the character's ability to acquire rare items. I don't remember what it's called whatsoever, so I wouldn't really be able to help you uh, find it. But I'm pretty sure there was one out there that I saw a clip from that was like that. So that's kind of what that cheat ability reminded me of. It also kind of reminds me of like an upgrade system that you often find in games where like you trade in like the lower level skins or whatever in order to try and get the the higher level skins. So like you trade like 3 rares, or no, like trade 5 uncommons as a chance to get like a rare skin, something like that. If that's kind of how your cheat ability works, then that'd be fantastic. It takes a mechanic that's really already present and then would apply it to a new scenario which it's never been used before. Which is a great way to reutilize and repurpose things like that. I had a magic system that I've come up with, been messing around with, that relies on engraving as the sort of method to channel magic, but it would work more as a channel, and it didn't have any energy and didn't produce any energy, but it would direct energy from wherever it came from through this magical device and then would output a desired result. Oh, hey, thanks for following, Sean. The only issue with my ability, aside from keeping the materials separate, is that the dumps would be limited in their quantity of materials. So the person would have to keep moving, not let anyone know they're the ones removing trash, for fear of being captured by nobles to only provide materials for them. True. So would it work more as like an inventory, or do they just have possession of the of like this magic trash can? Or what I guess I should say, is it an ability inherent to the character, or is it an ability inherent to an item? I forgot I should have pinned this earlier, but thanks for following me now that I can remember that. Yeah, you can follow me on X, like Intoxication Hand. Thanks for that. And I've also got a Discord where we talk writing, and I have some submission links there too for whenever I do review streams, which are fun. Yeah, if you ever have writing you want me to review beyond just ideas, yeah, you're welcome to do that too. I like to be helpful and provide the advice and knowledge I have. It would be an item they summon and dismiss. Only functions for them, but can use others to help sort materials. But that would reveal his power, so only if they break down to buy slaves. They'd have to do the work themselves. Well, they could just have friends do it too. You don't necessarily have to buy slaves, you know. It's an isekai, and, you know, you could have an adventuring party. Because I guess that's the way most isekais go. You have the main guy, and then they form a party to take down the big bad. Then the members of the party would be your trusted group who could help you sort materials and such. You don't necessarily have to resort down to slaves in that manner. But depending on the goals of the character and the world you build around them, you could set up a scenario in which slaves happen to exist quite frequently throughout the world. And so the character buying a couple wouldn't seem out of place or immoral in the context of the story. I wonder, I might try and find my magic system. Most isekai slaves have magical collars that prevent them from speaking secrets. That's why I would go there. They would hate the notion of slavery naturally, but they might get so desperate, or else see a slave that they just can't leave behind, such as one that looks like a family member, or is just so young they can't stand the idea of them being a slave and wanting to protect them. I could easily see that happening. That makes a lot of sense. I guess, yeah, it is a fictional world, and so you could have lots of different fictional slavery scenarios. I kind of thought back to reality on that one, but yeah, the whole slaves having magical collars that prevent them from speaking secrets. That's definitely a different and unique approach to how I was thinking about it. So, uh, hmm, I just had a thought. It's floating out there in the ether, trying to reach out and grab it, but I can't remember. Oh, yes. Okay. So, what I was thinking of is there's an author named James Rollins. He writes a lot of fantastic thrillers. I've read quite a few of them. But in his first foray into the fantasy genre, he wrote a book in which one of the nations in this fantasy world has a very particular caste system in which there are quite a lot of slaves that all are supporting the main ethnic group within the nation. And in the story, the slaves do have collars on them, but they act not, while they are technically slaves, they act for their owner more as scholars and advisors, and are actually trained in a quite brutal school for their, well, forced upon profession. But they're also, they're given strengths. They're given, well, I say strengths, but I mean like advanced training in fields like alchemy. And so that's kind of where my mind went when you mentioned the magic collars. Then there's the glorified hero approach. They earn the money to buy a slave intending to free them, only to discover that you can't free them due to the collar's magic. So upon discussing things with the first slave, they decide to work together to rescue as many slaves as they can, which would naturally backfire, because there's only so many slaves that can be supported in that method. Interesting. I like this idea. Fitting together a whole system. We're building a slave trade. Oh no. Don't worry, guys. It's in Minecraft. So, we're all good. Everyone knows slavery in Minecraft's okay. How else are you gonna get those mending books? But yeah, the magic collar idea would definitely work. It's a it's a good one. I like it. Of course, that also because magic collar, you can then extend that to the rest of the world. And how does the magic system in the rest of the world function? And how do the magic collars operate? Because if I were to use the magic system I devised for one of my stories that deals with engravings, it would be more an engraved collar, which would take the energy likely from the slave itself in order to remain locked and in an area. It'd kind of work based on my magic system. It'd probably work more kind of like a electric fence, like dog collar, those invisible electric fence collars that they have for dogs. If I was using my magic system, that's probably how it would work for me. I have a story idea that I'm not writing. I'm too intimidated in the world building. The idea is to follow a cave person during the Ice Age, but in a world where magical dungeons begin to appear. How does the primitive society adapt to the wondrously dangerous magical dungeons? Well, that's a good question. I see it kind of two ways. One, either what's in the dungeon can come out of the dungeon, and then you have a world that is now full of magical creatures that can do any magical creature you can think of that would be wreaking havoc all over the world. And it'd probably be more like well, you did mention Neolithic, so it'd be a Neolithic or post-apocalyptic in nature. The other way would be, say it results in the creatures stay inside the dungeon, and so I would see like a giant boost of innovation, economy, and general scientific advancement because of everyone trying to exploit the new resources of the dungeon. And so, necessity being the mother of invention, you get a leap forward due to the need to acquire things from within the dungeon. Every fantasy that has the magic dungeons so far, the dungeons are an established thing with a known method of response. But how did that system come to be? That's what inspired that idea. Oh, oh, I love that. That's that's fantastic. They might end up worshiping the dungeon, maybe even sacrificing things to it. I could see that happening. Yeah, yeah. You could easily have like a cult or an organized religion spring up based around the concept of the dungeon. I'm thinking more of a, just off the top of my head here, I'm kind of thinking more of a high church setting in which you have an organized top-down structure with clergy So you could have like a kind of pope for each dungeon. Well, not pope, bishop. You could have like a bishop for each dungeon, with of course the higher levels of the hierarchy managing all of them, and then like underlings who actually go into the dungeon, do things in the dungeon, or kind of, or maybe it's the worshippers who go into the dungeon for some reason or another. But that's quite intriguing. I like it. Let's see if I can find my magic system. Uh-huh. Okay. All right. So this is for a story I call The Gunsmith. It's a Western, uh, Western fantasy, or I guess Old West fantasy is the type of setting. But it's an engraving-based energy transfer system. So a couple of the rules is that like magic cannot create energy. It can only transfer it from a source to a target. And so because of that, it's somewhat based in pseudoscientific law. And so like this is one of the examples I had. You know how people have saloon doors and they're walking in, and normally it rings a bell or something. However, in this system, it takes the kinetic energy of the door opening and uses that to ring the bell. And so, if you constantly moved the door in and out, you could constantly make the bell ring. It's kind of a simple breakdown of it. I kind of played with the idea that the main character is a woman who was the first to come up with a bow and arrows, calling it a bent stick with little spears. She's somewhat of an outcast due to fear of her weapon. It's magic. Then she finds the dungeon, and after killing a number of slimes or whatever, she gets a drop. A compound bow with proper arrows. You can't get better than that for bows. That was the hook the dungeon chose to use in order to draw in more victims. Now that is very interesting. In this case, it's using... So it seems like the dungeon is semi... semi-conscious in the idea that it works as an entity that attempts to draw in victims by providing a incentive or lure. My other thought is like is there magic naturally in the world? And so, say that's why your main character is the first one to invent a bow and arrow, is because normally they'd use something like a magic missile to shoot the deer, and they have no need for a bow and arrow. Or is it like super early technology wise and there's no natural magic? And so the dungeon is actually becomes the source of the magic and the source of the wealth and the source of power, which also plays into uh, the, say, organized religion around the dungeon, which would naturally spring up, especially if it were the source of magic and therefore a good source of power. Because if you just got to kill a couple slimes and you get something very nice that would give you a huge advantage over other people in the world, then you're going to have people fighting over access to the dungeon, which provides conflict. And you're going to have leaders who use the dungeon's resources in order to stage conflict outside of it, which is a great setup for a story. Could have like the rise of the first king who used the dungeon to create weapons and build an army, which he then used to take land from other tribes and groups, building the first kingdom. That'd be a pretty good story, especially if you're thinking of it more as kind of like how a prequel would function to to a normal isekai that already has established dungeons and kingdoms. So the rise of the first king could be like the birth of the most powerful nation. So that, like the whole, even though that this is not a prequel, it's like a whole story. It kind of, if you think later into the future, like great kings or whatever, there'd be statues of this first king. Ah, I do have to say, it's a fantastic idea. And if you did want to start writing the story, I think that'd be great. If it's just like a brainstorming exercise, that's good too. Practice your strengths and your skills. I think it may be, if it was an isekai, then the main character would know exactly what was happening. So it wouldn't be the struggle that it would with the local person. It'd still be a fun story, just not the one I was planning. Yeah, yeah. I do like the idea of you setting the story in like a world pre-isekai. Well, it doesn't even have to be an isekai. It's just a story. Although it takes from tropes of isekais. But yeah, if you feel like writing it, then write it. I know the hardest part of creating a story is actually the sitting down and typing out words. It's part of why I kind of started streaming. I've been writing a lot more ever since I've done that. Did you ever watch the TV show Chips? I can't say I have. I don't know what it is. Look it up here. Chips TV show. The Adventures of Two California Highway Patrol Motorcycle Officers. Interesting. From the 1970s. Wow. That's older than I thought. Only 6.5 on IMDb. Interesting. Why does this seem familiar? I know I haven't watched it. I don't know, I just feel like there's references to this in some newer media. It sounds like something that would have been popular back in the day for something like a comedy. Why does it have to do this? I want to read it. Why does it have to pull up this link? The show is set in and around Los Angeles. Followed two highway patrol officers as they attend shift briefings and pursue their duties. I have the thought to do that in space, only it would be the Galactic Hyperline Patrol. It could be really fun. I do like that idea too. That'd definitely work. Well, you said that you're bad at writing sci-fi, but how are you in terms of writing other stuff like comedy? Because I guess this TV show is kind of a comedy and part crime drama. So you don't necessarily have to be good at writing sci-fi. It could be more of a fun sci-fi story, more more Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and less The Martian, because The Martian was super heavy on the science stuff, but Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy not so much, you know. So you could lean more that way, and just have a like a cozy sci-fi that also hits the comedy and police drama. That'd definitely work. Anyway, it is getting a little bit later, so I think we might start looking for someone to raid. Not so good at writing crime dramas, but I'm okay at comedy. Pirates don't make sense in space unless there are set routes that must be followed to get anywhere, such as a hyperlane that can only exist with the correct astronomical bodies to allow it. Would allow pirates a set of ambushes. Yeah, yeah. You can, honestly, depending on the vibe of the story, you can really get away with a lot of different things. Even if they don't always make the most sense in like a hard sci-fi scenario. If it's more like a soft and cozy sci-fi, then you can kind of get away with a lot more and it'd be a lot easier. I think that's one of the things about hard sci-fi that people tend to shy away from is how technical and stuff. So, eh, who knows? Anyway, it is getting late, so I am going to raid out. I think I'll send you guys to Cryptid Roots. She's reading and critiquing some stories. So I'll send you off to have a fun time with her. I hope you all enjoyed. Feel free to visit my Linktree, follow me on X, visit the Discord, all those fun things. If you want to talk writing and submit a story to talk about, have me read out, have me critique, you're all welcome to do that. And thanks for watching. Have a good night, and God bless.